Hey bike farmers, thanks for clicking in. I know it's kind of hard to believe, but one of the biggest problems in my life is everybody wants to give me their bikes all the time. Most of the time, I don't want your stupid bikes, but I get it. You don't know what to do with them, but I do. These are all bikes that were given to me that I'm not sure how I can bring value into my life with them. But I kind of do have a rule where it's like, hey, any extra bike can be dropped off here because they might have some charitable value. Now this is really misunderstood by a lot of people because people love their bikes. Like their perceived value of their bikes and my perceived value of their bikes are often very, very different. I think this video is more of a personal event, but I think there's some value in learning about what bikes have value in which markets, and that might be interesting for you. And I've got a story to tell about one that just spiraled completely out of control. Basically, a viewer just like you became frankly abusive towards me because what they thought it's like, I know what I've got. And it didn't have any value to me, and they like accused me of all this stuff. And anyway, I've got a good story to tell. So we're gonna take one of these bikes inside. I'm gonna work on it a little bit and tell you that story too. To get started, let's just kind of take a look at these first few bikes, and I'll let you know what I'm thinking with them and why they're out here and not in there. First of all of these bikes were perfectly rideable bikes. Here, they were given to me years ago. They've been hanging up forever. It's actually the second iteration because they hang out here and get blasted by the sun and then they get all faded and kind of ugly. But, you know, it's a nice little display. They're perfectly good bikes, just really hard to sell them. And I just think they're better as display bikes at this point. So this Trek 800, we replaced the shifters on this a number of years ago, but it was brought back to me the other day. It was a husband and wife. And he's like, let's just get rid of the bike. And she thought it had value. I was like, I don't know, I'll give you $30 for it because I just feel like if people feel like there's value, I want to give them a little something for their bike. And she's like, you can't even do 100? I'm like, absolutely not. And she's like, why? And I started to explain it and she kept interrupting because she just didn't want to believe it. But it's kind of cool because it has the Bicycle Clinic sticker on it here that's rubbing off. So it was originally purchased in Lake Mills at the shop I got my start in. So that's kind of fun for me. The tires are not dry rotted. The brake pads are. The spokes are all rusty. It's a Trek 800. This is an entry-level Trek. It's got a very uncomfortable saddle. It's got the bar ends on it. You know, this is like classic. Like, I want my bike to be more upright. But anyway, it has been sitting and the spoke protector's all shitty. And for me to like tune this up and clean this up where it could be sold in my shop at a used retail value would be very expensive. And the most I'd be able to get for it is like $300. So there's not enough meat on this bone for me to spend a whole lot of time on it. That said, it's a perfectly rideable bike as is. And I do have customers around here that use bikes to get to work and back and they can't afford a car, or maybe it's a temporary thing. And so I do like to have like 200 buckers. Where I make them rideable and somewhat dependable. And, you know, some of these guys, I keep their bikes running for years this way. So I think this is going to be a good candidate for that, even though it's kind of a smaller bike. Sometimes there's families that don't have a whole lot of money and I just want to, you know, and they just want their kid to have a decent bike. So if I make it rideable, the problem is that, you know, then the brake pads start cracking apart, or the tires get bad, or, you know, there's all these problems that kind of crop up, and then the repair costs are expensive, and so it kind of feels unethical to me down the road to be charging them for, you know, like it's like, I don't know. And like certain people out there, like the guy yesterday, would say that I'm like suckering people and doing this for profit, and that's just not the case at all. So it becomes really complicated and messy very quick. So sometimes it's easier just to give them to charity and avoid all that. But anyway, we're gonna fix this one up in the stand in a bit. I'll tell you more about that guy. This is a cool old lugged Columbus tubing. It's got Shimano 105. It's a very racy bike from its day. This guy rode it all over hell. Very well ridden. You know, and lugged road bikes, lugged steel road bikes are very cool. You know, you've seen them on the channel. This is a Japanese one. I've never really heard of this brand, but it's a thing. And perfectly great, awesome bike with some decent parts, but there's no market for obsolete old road bikes with down tube shifters and 7-speed freewheel wheels, and I mean, it's like there's barely any market. Now this does have like a Chinelli stem and bars. There's some value in this bike, like for an eBay store or something like that, like parted out. But even then, maybe a couple $100 max, and it would take a year to make that $200. So it's just not worth my time, you know. But on a charitable level, it could be made rideable and given to a kid, or at a bike co-op, somebody could come in and be like, hey, that's just the project I was looking for. Here's $50, give me that bike, and then they can use their own time. And those, you know, there's resources available where this could become a fun bike for someone. So it does have some charitable value. So that's why it's in the charity pile. Here's a really good example of a bike that should just be thrown in a dumpster. It's completely rusted. The amount of time and effort to make this thing rideable or presentable, even on a charitable level to give to a kid to ride, is just so high that it's better off just being tossed into a landfill, into a river, right on top of a coral reef maybe, where all of the beautiful fish would look at it and just die immediately and become silt at the bottom of the depths of the ocean forever. Zero value to anyone. It's just a pain in the ass to move around all the time. But because it's a bicycle-shaped object, there's a perceived value there. But all you're doing when you're giving this to charity or to me or whatever, basically is passing your problem along to someone else. This is an insult, right? Despite your intentions, it's insulting to just be like, here's my garbage. All right, here's a Trek 4300. It's got really good brake levers. They're bent though. It's got really good shifters, 9-speed 3x9 drivetrain, but it is all messed up. The previous owner had tried to fix it themselves, took all the chain rings apart. It's got decent parts on it, decent wheels. I'm not sure what to do with this. That's why it's outside. A big part of me wants to rescue it, but it might be actually a good bike farmer video. So I should probably bring it inside and do this as a bike farmer video because it is so incredibly messed up, and like it'd just be a nice long video where you get to see various things. It's got cable, disc brakes, and some other things that you don't see on the channel very much. So I see this as having some YouTube value for me, and actually should bring it inside and not let it get rained on. My bad. Okay, we got the Schwinn Sidewinder, women inspired. It's got a big butt saddle on it. The tires are still good on it. It looks to be very rideable, and you know, probably was bought for a girl that didn't ride it very much at all. It's sat, it's got like the half-filled tires that are the same. So this bike, actually, I have a video idea for it. I think I can make this bike very rideable and actually better than brand new. Like I can make some easy tweaks and to make it in better condition than it was sold brand new at the big box store, and it would be good enough to sell at a very discounted price to a family that can't afford one of my $350 used bikes, but maybe could afford a $150 used bike. It's like, this is a shit bike and nobody should ever buy it new, but you know, it's actually not half bad. It's probably good enough for who it's for. And so this also has some YouTube value for me. Yeah, you'll probably be seeing it in a video coming up. You know, this is a very rideable Trek Multisport, another one of those where I could, you know, it just needs tires and stuff, and I could probably find some used tires that fit on it, make it just rideable, make it a 200-bucker, you know, some decent transportation for someone. This Huffy's just a donator. This Huffy's just a donator. This white one was one that somebody bought and rode the crap out of it. It was a 200-bucker. They rode the crap out of it, left it parked outside. It's roached. There's a Kent, you know, another. These are all just charity bikes for sure. Free bikes for kids. And then somebody came and dropped off all these wheels, and it's like, I don't know, I have no idea. This is like a good example of why are you giving me your garbage? But I do tell people, if you have extra bike stuff, just drop it off and I'll sort through it and either throw it away or send it to charity. It's got some scrap value too, I suppose. I don't know how, but you know, that's not even worth it either. And then half of my life is spent stacking bikes. Except I want access to this one. All right, so I just move bikes around. So these bikes have been rained on. It's gonna be a warm, sunny day. So these two are gonna become videos, but I'm gonna leave them out in the sun so they dry. All right, let's take this in and see if we can make it rideable. So if I open the skewer, all right, so the seat post is not frozen. That's good. Something's very loose. The headset's very loose. Bottom bracket's okay. All right, so we've got this bike here. Yeah, this headset's like crazy loose. We should be able to tighten her right up. If I'm just gonna make this bike rideable and sell it for cheap or make it available to somebody that could use the help, which I do periodically, I'm not gonna, this is just like, let's do the bare minimum. This is when I was doing free bikes for kids and kind of running that, it's like what I expected out of volunteer, like guys that are just kind of learning. We're not making these bikes perfect. We're not restoring these bikes. We're just making them rideable and making them so the wheels don't fall off and they go and they stop and they shift, hopefully indexing properly and that kind of thing. So this is all very quick. You know, if you want to do something nice for someone, you can go to the thrift shop and buy a bike and in, 20 minutes or something in your garage, make it way better than it was and help someone out. So, yeah, let's get going on it. Let's just talk about this. It's like I offered someone $30 for this bike, right, as it is, just because I have, felt sorry for them, because they thought their bike had, way more value than it did. And they were like insulted by that $30 and, wanted at least $100 because it says Trek on the side of it, right? And it's been their bike their whole life and whatever. It's gotta have some value. And then at some point, they did put shifters on it. Like these are new shifters. So maybe that was it. Maybe it was like $100 to put those shifters on it and get it shifting again. And, maybe that's where that number came from. I don't know. But it was like a whole thing where they like had to have a powwow, where they had to like have a sidebar and talk it over before they finally just gave it to me. So that wheel's really straight, And the brakes actually work pretty good. And that wheel's pretty straight. And those brakes work pretty good. So, it's because they had Gibbs tune it up not too long ago. Well, years ago, but the tune-ups hold pretty good for years. And then if we run through it, that's a little loose. It's not shifting the best, but it's shifting. So all of the systems are checking out. One of the things that I noticed right away is that this seat is slid all the way back and at a weird angle. And that just means that this bolt is loose. I'm going to loosen it just a little bit more. Put that seat more of a neutral position and crank on it. Okay, so what prompted this video and the title, I Don't Want Your Stupid Bikes, is not too long ago, a few days ago, guy reached out, said, hey, I'm 70 years old. They all kind of start that way. Hey, I'm 70 years old. I've got these old bikes. I think they might have some value to you. They might make good videos, or hopefully you can, find a good home for them. And I said, I'm interested. Send me some photos, send me a price, so on and so forth. I don't like how this valve stem is crooked. So also typically, and this happens like almost every single time, is I'm like, send me a good photo and send me a price. And I'll get a photo. And most of the time they're really bad. This time it was actually pretty decent photos. Like I could tell what the bikes were and what kind of condition they were in pretty easily, but no price. And I was like, okay. And right away, I noticed the bikes. It was an obsolete old steel lug road bike, which you know I love, but they have zero market value for me. They just sit around. Nobody else wants them, but maybe at a bike co-op, they might be worth 50 bucks. And an old high-end or higher-end Trek full suspension mountain bike, which in its day was super cool, but it's wildly obsolete. You know, a 26-inch triple chainring, and it had rim brakes. All things that I kind of like, but nobody else does, so they have no value. So I'm like, okay, this person doesn't know what they've got, but they think they do. And I had asked if they were able to deliver, because that's the other thing, is people think that, you know, they have something that I want, or that it's got all this value that I'm gonna like, you know, they're like, oh, I'm giving someone a bike, they're gonna go way out of their way to accommodate me. And I'm like, no, this happens to me every day. It's a problem for me. It's a problem I need to solve. You're just bringing me a problem to solve. Now, sometimes there is enough value and enough meat on that bone that I can make a buck, or sometimes it's a slam dunk charity bike and I like that, you know? But most of the time, your extra bikes are a problem for you, and therefore it's a problem for me. And I'm here to help you solve your problems, but I also need to know what I'm getting into. So anyway, they said that they were kind of passing through and able to deliver the bikes. But for whatever reason, they didn't want to give me a price. They insisted that I make a reasonable offer. Okay? First of all, if you're selling something to someone, you know, they wanted something. They didn't want to just give me the bikes, apparently. Even though they were like making this grand altruistic gesture of, you know, I have old bikes and want to give them to somebody who can appreciate them or something. They wanted something for them, but they wouldn't tell me how much. So they make me guess. And you're setting me up for failure at that point. I hate that. I almost have a hard rule where it's like, I won't deal with you unless you give me a price. If you're selling something, you give a price, okay? That sets the expectations. Then there's no misunderstandings about where we are on perceived value. You know, after I asked a second time for a price, I heard nothing. They said, just make a reasonable offer and we'll figure out a way to drop them off, right? And at that point, I'm like, I don't want to deal with this person. They're being difficult. I'm being bamboozled. This is not going to end well. All the red flags are going off for me at this point. But I'm also thinking, I'm like, okay, well, this is like a 70-year-old man with some extra bikes. He's thinking he's going to be doing something nice. He watches the channel, you know, seems like a decent person, despite being from Illinois. You know, I'm like, well, you know, okay, you know, but I just ignored it. Fast forward to the next morning, late morning. Hey, Andy, I'm leaving Illinois on my way to your place. You know, will you be around? And right away, I was like, no. Well, right away, I said, noon? You know, because it was like, it takes about 2 hours. And they were like, no, 2. And I'm like, I'm busy. I had a golf match, you know, and I was planning on taking a nap before my golf match. So I was like, no, I'm busy. And they were like, 1:10? And I was like, no, I'm busy. And they were like, really? Exclamation point. Like I owed them something. And clearly there's been a misunderstanding of everything, because uninvited, they were insisting that I'm on their way, but they did tell me it was like out of their way. So I'm like trying to respond quickly and clearly, and you know, to be fair, maybe, yeah, okay, so this lock nut is stripped. That's why this headset's loosening up. So, you know, this is part of the problem when I see bikes like this. It's like, well, like, is it really worth taking all this apart because of this way this brake goes through the stem and everything? Like, taking this all apart, everything has to be readjusted. It's like not an easy fix. It's such a stupid little thing. And the bike is like totally rideable if you just kind of tighten that down every once in a while, you know? Anyway, I wasn't gonna like skip my nap and mess up my golf match because there's actually money on the line and whatever. Like, I had plans that day, and I'm not gonna change my plans because you want to give me 2 shitty bikes. But I also don't want to be that ungrateful prick with a YouTube channel who attracts people into his life that are well-meaning and, you know, think they have these nice bikes. I don't want to be that guy who just is like, I don't want your stupid bikes, you know? So I was like, you know, he asked me to make a reasonable offer. And I'm like, these bikes don't really have much value to me at all. I might be able to make $100 at some point on these bikes somehow. So I offered him $100 for him to swing by, drop the bikes off, and I'll deal with them, right? And that got the reply, I fuck you. And I'm like, oh, the guy's an idiot. I didn't know. You know, he seemed normal, but he's not. Which I responded, hard pass on that. Like, I don't really want to have sex with the guy at this point. You know, I understand that most of you probably want to have sex with the bike farmer. Most of you are probably semi-literate. And I know a lot of you are from Illinois. I know all those things, but that does not, just because I have this channel and I'm awesome and everything, doesn't mean I want to, like, have you over for sex. So now I'm like, definitely like, I don't want this guy anywhere near me. So then, much like our president, this 70-year-old man starts to behave like a toddler and starts to tell me all the ways that I'm a bad guy and he's a good guy, even though he just doesn't understand what's happening. And because, you know, if you're mean to me for no good reason at all, as someone who has creative ambitions in this world, I find it entertaining to try to be meaner. And so I start to reply. And we've been going back and forth for a couple days. It's been kind of fun. You know, it's an interesting psychological thing for me to, like, watch a grown man freak out like this and be so unself-aware that all he's doing is projecting his own insecurities on me. Like, the whole thing's a big setup. Like, I set him up. You know, like, I have this used bike shop where I'm ripping everybody off, and I have the YouTube channel to attract people to give him bikes for super cheap, and he knows what he's got, right? But from the very beginning, I never wanted those stupid bikes. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole thing, is like, I understand that he's, you know, he's been, well, yeah, there's all these comments about how I'm, like, bad for cycling. And I'm like, but that does not bother me at all. Like, I've been the anti-cyclist bike shop, and this is like an anti-cyclist channel since day one. Like, he called it a sport. Cycling isn't a sport. Nobody's doing sports on this. I understand that that's what it is for him, but he wants me to be like that. And it's like, what part of my channel do you think, or me? Like, I've never been like that. That's never been my goal. You know, I don't know how many bikes like this that I've done where I just kind of make rideable bikes so somebody has a way to get to work and back. I literally started a children's bike charity in Madison, so any kid in Madison can have a bike for free. That charity has gone on to, like, serve thousands of low-income families. I've gotten messages about how it's, like, totally changed their lives, you know, and none of them are doing this for sport. But, you know, like, I don't know. I mean, I think that's pretty good stuff. And I don't, you know, talk about it a lot because, you know, to be honest, like, for me, I'm more of a bike person than a people person, if you can't tell by now. You know, one of the main reasons I got out of the bike charity thing is I realized that I, like, and I know this sounds cold-hearted or whatever, but I kind of, like, care more about the bikes than I do the people. I'm not proud of that. It's just kind of like, I'm a bike expert. I'm not a people expert. You know, it's really practical. You know, to be an executive director of any nonprofit, I think you really have to, like, want to serve people. And I'm like, I was more into the bike part of it. Anyway, I don't know why I'm even talking about that. This guy just has not been able to leave me alone. Now, then again, I've been replying, I've been engaging, and, you know, but he just cannot quit me. He absolutely 100% cannot quit me. I feel so sorry for this guy. You know, he feels like I'm treating him a certain way. And I'm like, I'm not the one that, like, didn't get my way and said, F you, and then started hurling insults. You know, this is why Richard Simmons holed up in his Malibu mansion for decades, avoiding all contact with human beings forever. You know, he helped millions of people find fitness and self-worth and beauty within themselves, and made himself available to the general public for the most part for many, many years. But then jackasses like Bill from Evanston come along and screw it all up for everyone just because they were trying to do something nice, but not actually doing anything nice. Just bait and switching and trying to fill themselves full of self-worth at somebody else's peril. Like, it's not my job to make you feel good. But if you want to drop off some bikes, you know, I'll try to do my best to like make it a win-win. You know, I will, because I appreciate you watching. Despite how much I love them, even more than people, it's just a fucking bike. All right, that headset lock nut is driving me crazy. And even though it's just a bike, I can't not. You know, it's really the only fatal flaw in the whole thing at this point. I mean, there's lots more improvements I can make, but fatal flaw. My problem is going to be finding a replacement lock nut. I don't know if I have one in the bins. I should probably be looking before I take it all apart. I suppose I got a pile of charity bikes. I could rob one. So what happens is, this is a very hard steel, the steer tube, and this is a much softer steel. And then the threads strip out inside there, and they're very fine threads. They're very fine threads, Stuart. I mean, I suppose the video could just be about like giving in general. Like, I mean, it drove me crazy at the bike charity when people would drop their garbage off at the charity and like think that they were doing good. You know, like it doesn't have any value. Now, there are some charities where, like one of the food banks here in town, they're like, bring us your metal scraps and we'll scrap it and fund things. And I'm like, I don't know how that's a business model. But just because it's a charity, just because it's a nonprofit, doesn't mean they have to be broke. Give them something of value. You can afford it. And I'm not saying that I'm like very for-profit here. That's 30, okay. You know, this is a for-profit business and I don't operate on donations. But if you just have a bike that's a problem in your life and want to get rid of it, I'm doing you a favor by giving you a place to get rid of it. And like, it's labor to process those bikes. You know, it's effort, and there's enough value in that. It doesn't have to be money, you know, like I'll handle that for you. And I'll gladly handle that for you, but don't demand that I handle it a certain way for you. Just drop off the bike. I say thank you. You say you're welcome, and we're good to go. And if you need something from me for that donation, or for anyone ever, if you're ever expecting payment or reciprocity of any kind, let them know. You know, when somebody says, what's the price? Give them a price. What does it cost to have an acceptable transactional relationship with you, Bill from Evanston? Because you don't know what the you're talking about. You know, and then he goes on to say that my content is bad, that it's boring and like it's repetitive, and that I should be doing, and he had a whole list of like other things I should be showing on my channel instead of the same thing over and over again. And I'm like, I haven't changed my channel description since day one because I still want it to be like the joy of painting of bikes. And Bob Ross had 33 seasons, 13 episodes or 14 episodes each. What is that? It's like 400 episodes of the joy of painting. It was all the same thing over and over and over again. And people miss him. That's what I'm creating here. You know, if you want to watch wheel building videos, go find a wheel building video. You know, I've never said that's what I'm going to be doing for you. Why are you asking that of me? You know what I mean? Like, it just feels so abusive to me. Like, hey, I'm a random asshole from Evanston, Illinois. I demand that you be a certain way to meet my needs. I'm on my way to your house. Like, what, bro? I don't think so. You know, there's an argument that can be made that a kid could be made very happy with a fully suspended Trek fuel from the year 2000, right? Like the most amazing mountain bike ever. And that's true. That is true. But it can't be sold through Gibbs Bike Shop. I wouldn't do that. And that bike would sit here forever. I've tried to do that with cheap, fully suspended bikes. The kids know too much and they just don't want them. All right, drop another bomb that's probably I'm gonna lose a bunch of friends and you're all gonna hate me for it. But in the bike world, in the bike shop world, there's a thing called DUIs. DUI, driving under the influence. What happens is these guys go out and they get nabbed for drunk driving. And maybe this is just a Wisconsin thing, but I think it's all over the place. But that's like super common in Wisconsin, believe it or not. And like our drunk driving laws are crazy. Like you can get 6 of them. Anyway, these guys have their license taken away, but they still have to get to work. And so they go to the bike shop and they're like, I need to get to work and back. Do you have a bike for $100? And back in the day, you stick 10 speed and give it to them, right? Just here you go. And the first thing they do is loosen the stem bolt and flip the handlebars up so they could ride upright, right? Because nobody wants to be bent over. They just want to get to work and back. And they have their 10 speed. And so you see a road bike with the handlebars turned up, you call it a DUI bike. That's the thing in the bike shop. It's always been there for decades. I'll make the rules, right? This right here is the modern version of the DUI. They are 90s mountain bikes with bar ends going straight up in the air and a shitty saddle and shitty tires. And you know what? They get you to work and back or to the bar and back. You can keep drinking. You don't have to quit drinking. Get one of these for $100 and you can work every day and drink every night. That's what this is for. And this has more value in society, in my little town, than Bill's stupid bikes. That's the reality here, folks. I wish it was different. You know, I want nothing more than to fulfill Bill from Evanston's wildest dreams of giving the bike farmer his beloved old bikes and finding the saddest little kid and making him the happiest little kid with these obsolete bikes. But the amount of time and effort and rigmarole to make that happen, it's just a dream. It's all made up in your head. And if you want the bikes to go to charity, give them to charity. If you want the bikes to go to the bike farmer to do whatever the bike farmer thinks is right, then give them to the bike farmer. And I'm gonna do my very best to make as much money as possible. Anybody who's been watching this channel knows I'm only in it for the money, folks. And to help you, and to rescue bikes, and to help people. I'm in it for all those reasons too, you know, despite what Bill from Evanston likes to say about me. So enjoy reading the texts from Bill. That's all. If you made it this far, holy cow. I tell you what, that is amazing. It's all I ever wanted from Bill. It's all I ever wanted from you. But I do like more. And I know you probably got it. So dig deep, grab a few bucks, turn it into super thanks. Send it to me right here in YouTube. You don't have to go anywhere. Also here in YouTube, you can join as a channel member. It's like how people used to ask you to go to Patreon, like a whole different platform. Well, YouTube got smart and they figured out you can do it right here. You can join channel membership. It gives me a like sustainable monthly income that I can kind of depend on coming. That's like how public TV works, right? Public radio. Same thing. You know, if you do have something you want to give me, you know, go ahead and send it. I don't really care. But just don't like attack me when I don't meet your expectations, because we could be way off on things, and that's just how the world works. I guarantee you the number one thing you can do for yourself that will improve your life exponentially, it's click that notification bell so you and your bikes can stay tuned.